Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The convicted killer, Levi Bellfield, has been given a second life sentence for murdering the schoolgirl Milly Dowler 9 years ago and told he will never be released. This morning, the judge discharged the jury at the Old Bailey before they'd reached a verdict on a final charge against him because of what he called adverse publicity. Meanwhile, Milly Dowler's sister has complained about the ordeal her parents went through during the trial. From the Old Bailey, Sophie Hutchinson reports.
Milly Dowler amusing her family as she did the ironing. This is amongst their last happy memories of her. Her sister Gemma, seen hugging her here, has spoken to them.
And apologies for that, we do seem to have lost the sound on Sophie Hutchinson's report, but we can join her now live at the Old Bailey. Sophie, it has been a very dramatic morning. Talk us through what has been happening there.
Well, these are certainly very unusual circumstances. What happened this morning was that the judge decided to discharge the jury. It means the case against Levi Bellfield is now over. Of course, yesterday he was found guilty of the abduction and murder of Milly Dowler. But today the jury's work was not over. They were meant to be considering whether he had attempted to abduct another schoolgirl the day before he murdered Milly. Her name is Rachel Cowles and she came here to the Old Bailey to give evidence about that. But the defence today, Levi Bellfield's defence, said that there had been overnight an avalanche of adverse publicity about the case in the media, and he complained that it was unfair. He said in particular to interviews done with Levi Bellfield's former girlfriends Emma Mills and Joanna Collins. And the judge in court said that he has been forced to dismiss the jury as a result of that. He described it as deplorable, and he said the reason was that the trigger had been pulled too soon by the media, as he put it.
And we have also heard, we just heard in the headlines there from Milly Dowler's sister Gemma, who has been talking about the ordeal that her parents went through during the 2 days that they were in the stands in court.
I mean, there's no question about how painful this would have been in any situation for a family who's lost a child in this way. But it's clear from the Dowler family that what they have been through in court during this process has been extremely painful. And what Milly's sister Gemma has said is that it has almost been as painful as the day they realised that Milly had disappeared and been murdered. She said her parents had been put, almost many had said, on trial here in this court, instead of Levi Bellfield, who was in fact the person on trial here. And some of the questions that they were asked over the course of this trial were particularly painful and personal, and some believe very humiliating for them.
Well, Sophie, thank you very much, and we can now go straight to your report.
Milly Dowler amusing her family as she did the ironing. This is amongst their last happy memories of her. Her sister Gemma, seen hugging her here, has spoken out about the pain the family has been through since her murder and the way they were treated in court.
The first 2 days when my mum and dad were questioned by the defence and the prosecution was probably worse than the day that she went missing. It was that extreme.
Bob Dowler, Milly's father, was grilled about his daughter finding pornographic magazines in the house. It was suggested she'd run away because she was so upset. And Milly's mother, Sally, who said she'd had a nervous breakdown, cried as she was probed about why her daughter believed she wasn't the favourite. She collapsed as she left the witness box. Yesterday, Levi Bellfield, a multiple killer described as devious and dangerous, was convicted of Milly's abduction and murder. He was also charged with attempting to abduct Rachel Cowles, another schoolgirl, on the day before Milly's murder. But today, following what the defence described as an avalanche of adverse publicity, the judge dismissed the jury and closed the case. In court, the judge, Mr. Justice Wilkie, described the publicity in relation to Bellfield as deplorable and said he'd been forced to discharge the jury as a result, as he put it, of the trigger being pulled too soon. Sentencing Bellfield, the judge said he was a cruel and pitiless killer. He gave him a whole life term. Milly's family cried and hugged each other after leaving the court.
Sophie Hutchinson with that report.